So this meeting is being recorded. And so what I'm going to do is turn off my screen reader because it makes a lot of noise for me. That's not for everyone. And then we'll be getting started right away so that we can save as much time as possible. But the meeting itself is recorded and it's going to go onto YouTube. So it will be available on the YouTube channel. Okay.
That's amazing.
Speech on demand.
So my speech is off. And so, well, welcome everybody for the 60th Actuate Society for Decentralized Science meeting. It's a meetup. We do this hybrid meetup in person here in Boston, and also live through YouTube from everywhere in the world. So I have realized that my camera is not on because anyway, I don't see a thing. I'm going to turn on my camera so that you guys can tell me, can you all see me? Kimavi?
Yes.
All right, yeah. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about economic justice token on the blockchain. Economic justice, we know we just talk about it. Usually we talk about it, but do we really mean it? So Russ Kimavi Sapolton, who talked to us about the phenomena of justice itself, the economic justice, how can we achieve it? And how do we use the blockchain to achieve economic justice? So Russ, I need to introduce who Russ is. Russ is an attorney at law. He's a lawyer practicing in the United Kingdom. And also his deep origins in the African roots, having come from Jamaica. Right now, he is in the United Kingdom, but he is concerned about justice, like in global justice itself, giving people access to representation of the law. So Simon, tell us the secret about economic justice, the secret sauce. The floor is yours.
The secrecy. Well, the secret in this sauce is has prompted a vision from a speech from yourself, to be honest. You have inspired me in a lot of your teachings, a lot of your works, what you have been doing of late. I am a very follower of Marcus Garvey, and just his teachings, his vision for the future, and for all obviously African people in the diaspora, just having unity. He obviously tried to create the Black Star Line, who would obviously try to transport all African people who were in the West back to Africa. But one of his philosophies were centralize, immobilize, and unity. I believe in your vision, Dr. Macharia. It's
Yes.
something which I have never heard before, but it has just resonated with a lot of my beliefs that how can we get equity as Black people? And everywhere in this world, we will see that there's Black people are always underprivileged, discriminated, and it's something which, as a dreamer, I could say, how can we even the playing field? We can go deep into slavery and what has brought us to this point, but how can we get equity? And I do believe in the economic justice token, because from what you have taught me over the last few weeks and months, it's a market which hasn't been, can't be, manipulated. How does that be? So if we can get some form of economic justice, equity, then I believe that will help with poverty, because poverty is the biggest issue, especially within our communities. So through poverty, there's crime, lack of education, lack of healthcare, and lack of justice throughout the legal system. So if there's a way that we can create where even the poorest of peoples in the earth can manage to occupy wealth or be accessible to wealth, that would help with their education for their offspring, food, sanitation, healthcare, education. So most definitely, I do believe that we do need to occupy economic justice going forward, 100%, and that would hopefully alleviate or eradicate a good 80% of the world's trouble that's going on right now for the privileged individuals. So the economic justice is definitely within the blockchain. That's what I do believe. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a scientific person. However, I am a bit of a dreamer. I'm more of a philosopher. And however, it does resonate with what I am feeling mostly about. So hopefully, with unity, people coming together and joining and investing in the blockchain, I feel that maybe the next 10 years should be very interesting indeed for a lot of individuals in the diaspora.
Excellent. So, question, I mean, first of all, to underpin this whole conversation, I believe that the blockchain is the primary technology for economic justice. You see, to achieve justice in its own completeness, what I call global justice, we have at the very bottom the economic justice. Economic justice is getting paid for the value of your work that you produce every day. Nearly, you could say, 6-point-something billion people do not achieve economic justice because they are not represented in the market. They have no mode of representation. That's the way the justice system is structured. See, like the article I wrote yesterday about the spirit of justice. The spirit of justice today, it exists in it kind of sterile type of system, and it is made for excluding people, so that the people who are not included in the economic justice system, they are considered extra legal, which is what Hernandez sort of talked about way back in 2000 when he wrote the book Why Capitalism Triumphs in the West and Fails Everywhere Else. Capitalism cannot work without economic justice. And when there's no economic justice, there's something called poverty. So poverty is something that we actively create. Now, the trouble with creating poverty is that it ends up hurting lots of people, because when people cannot represent the value of their work, it means that they don't have money to afford their basic needs. Basic needs are, you could say, three categories. Food is a primary basic need. If you do not have economic justice, you have no access to food. So you can starve to death, even as the rest of the world is watching. Number two, people don't have shelter. See, places to live so that they can protect themselves from the harms of nature and the environment. And so they cannot even protect them from animals like mosquitoes, bacteria, viruses. They cannot protect them from lions who could come and eat them, or even they cannot protect them from the vagaries of the environment. See, when there's no justice, there's no health. When there's no economic justice, there's no health. So the blockchain itself, it has got the power, the technology to reach everybody in the world through their cell phone. See, if we can reach everyone, it means that we can actually load economic justice on everyone. And the blockchain, to make matters even much more lovely, is to understand the blockchain is created, well, by Satoshi Nakamoto. It was built for economic justice specifically. And so when people have economic justice, it means that they can have money in their pocket, they can get paid, and for the value of the work they do every day. And from there, then they can achieve to purchase things of great value to improve their life, to improve their health. And that second layer, when economic justice is achieved, then we're able to achieve what's called distributive justice. Distributive means that the products that we make for improving human life, things like biomedical devices, tablets, medicines, mosquito nets, you cannot afford those, you cannot access those things if you don't have money to buy them, okay? But if you have money, you can buy all the kinds of things you want to improve your lot, let's say to improve the life of yourself and your family. And that's why economic justice, it's at the very foundation of everything. And see, economic justice then helps also to achieve what's called social justice. Social justice is a third layer that when people can achieve economic distributive justice, they are going to advance socially. You have got this upward social mobility. Upward social mobility can only come when there is distributive justice, and distributive justice in itself can only come when we have got economic justice. So the economic justice is at the foundation of all justice in the world. And that's why I'm very excited about the economic justice token. And so what I would like you to do, Simon Gemavi, you can show us a presentation about economic justice so that in general, so you can give us what it is all about. Are you able to share your screen?
Yes, 1 second. Let me
Yeah.
find the presentation. Bear with me a moment.
Yeah. So you can tell us what it is all about. Why do we need economic justice? And ultimately, how will it work in form of a token? How will the economic justice work in form of a token? And then we can figure out now, how do we rally ourselves together towards that token? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, bear with me a moment.
So Susan is the host now. You can allow her to share your screen.
Okay. Bear with me a moment.
So to share your screen on keyboard command, it says Alt V, Alt S, or keyboard Alt, Alt, and then S.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I've got so many tabs open. Bear with me a moment.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, now I've got you. Yep.
S or screen share. Well, I don't know how it works for the visually.
Screen share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Well, Susan can confirm. Susan, can you see the screen? Or maybe Jose.
No.
No. Okay. Okay. Let's try again.
Sharing your music.
Mhm.
So what's going on now? Susan, can you see screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, we are seeing, yeah.
What?
Okay, let's wait until for the PowerPoint.
Oh. Tab, okay.
Hello?
Hello. Okay.
Yeah, we can see the screen now. Okay, my apologies. So understanding economic justice. So we have here building a fair and inclusive legal and economic future.
Yeah.
So what is economic justice? This slide is basically economic justice would relate to the fair distribution of economic resources and opportunities. It also refers to the idea that the economy will be more successful if it is fairer. It includes like we can relate to the moral principles which guide us in designing economic institutions. But we don't want charity, we want systemic equity. These are the things which we want. We want a proper framework that works for one and all. So we have economic justice. However, these are very important that we have key components in achieving economic justice. Equity is an important component. It boils down to 4 components of condensed equity. Number 1, the fair distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges. Number 2, access. So again, we're looking at equal opportunity to resources like education, healthcare, and jobs. 3, participation. Everyone has a voice in economic decision making, and most important of all, human dignity, where economic systems respect and uplift the inherent worth of all people. So let me expound on about equity for a moment. Equity means recognizing that not everyone starts from the same place, which is very true. Some individuals may be born into wealth. No one is asked to be born, but through life, it's not always sometimes where you start in life, but maybe where you can also end up in life. So everyone same place, and then just into the imbalances to create fair outcomes. Equity is different from equality, which treats everyone the same regardless of their starting point. Equity takes into the account of historical and systemic disadvantages, with the aims to correct them so that all individuals succeed on their potential, not their circumstances. So we're trying to outline the difference between equity and equality. There's a big difference there. Some people may not know that, but there is. The second component, access. Equal opportunities to resources like education, healthcare, and jobs. Dr. Masharia touched upon basic necessities, food, access to food. And lots of people in this world do not. And that's a basic fundamental human right. Food, shelter, education. Many people may get an education, but is it any form of, is it quality of education? That's a key point. So we need to make the economic justice would solve and give access to all, and it would ensure that background, socioeconomic status, that they have the opportunity to benefit from essential services and economic resources, which is very important. Education, healthcare, and housing. And what about employment? It's okay it's okay if people get educated, but if there's no jobs for them, then that becomes another problem. So then lack of employment, back into poverty. So there's a vicious cycle. What about financial services? Some people may not be able to obtain credit in some countries. So access is very important. So if individuals who are without general access, people are then locked out of opportunities and upward mobility in society. A while ago, making it hard to break cycles of poverty and equality. So access would be the second key component. participation, the third component. Everyone has a voice in economic decision making. What does this mean? This means that individuals and communities are empowered to influence the decisions that affect their economic lives. I believe we could all agree on this, but they don't. This would include maybe the involvement in workplace decisions, public policy, budgeting processes, and community development. But what about the voiceless? What about the single mother who maybe working 2 jobs and cannot afford to raise her voice just in case she may lose her job? How participate in society? They're not. We would all agree. I've been at certain, even myself, I've been at certain employments where I feel that I can't voice my opinion or be authentic. So how are we really participating in an equal society? We are not. So true economic justice requires that even marginalized groups are not only included, but are respected for their differences, for their not so-called conventional ways or conventional appearances. There's for example, there's a lot of topic for the last many years how, say for example, Black women and their hair, you know, just not wearing their hair in a natural sense. They may feel like they have to change their fitting. That's not being true and authentic. So again, participation being in our true authentic selves is important. So when we have more people who are involved in shaping the economy, it will hopefully then lead to a more inclusive and sustainable outcomes. The last key component, and please, if anybody got any questions, please feel free to ask away, but human dignity. What is human dignity? A lot of people talk about human rights and human dignity, but do we have human rights? As a human rights lawyer and going through my academic journey, I would title more about human wrongs, because there's a lot of wrongs in society. So how do we correct these wrongs? So economic systems should respect and uplift the inherent and all. Human dignity is economic justice means recognizing that every person deserves to live and work in conditions that affirm their value and humanity. Let me repeat that again. Human dignity is economic justice. Sorry, human dignity in economic justice means recognizing that every person deserves to live and work in conditions that affirm their value and humanity. Again, it's such of these things that I'm saying, it sounds good in theory, but in practice, how many people can say throughout this world are living according to that? Not many. It also would involve fair wages, safe working environments, freedom from exploitation. And even in the UK today, I work as an immigration lawyer. I've been working through many exploitatory in exploitation, and it's obviously it's a crime being exploited at work through modern day slavery, but they feel that they have no other way to survive. They may be in the UK illegitimately, and they are being taken advantage of. So even in 2025, and even in like UK and the Americas, a lot of individuals are being exploited. So again, back to human dignity, this would mean that everyone has the opportunity to lead a fulfilling life. Again, it sounds great in theory, but many don't. Economic policies and institutions should not treat people as mere labor or consumers, but as full human being rights and aspirations. So what are the key differences between equity and equality? As this slide clearly shows, millions lack access to legal services. So are we saying that legal systems are accessible for the wealthy and privileged? Wealth concentrates on power, poverty strips rights. And Dr. Mashara touched upon poverty. Poverty, it's a vicious cycle, a lot of entrapment. And working in the criminal justice system, I've seen a lot of unfortunate individuals do all kinds of maybe immoral things because of poverty, through political or even religious groups. People are victims of poverty. And we can also here say that legal systems may often benefit the privileged. And this is very true. In the UK, we have a legal aid system. And I have worked with in legal aid firms and organizations or charities. And a lot of these charities, they are employing students to work in these organizations. So they do not have, they may not lack, sorry, they may not possess the real qualifications in a lot of these services, like legal aid services, community services, or even certain law centers. There may be a lawyer, one lawyer present, but compare that to 400 citizens who may require that service. It's impossible for that one lawyer or two lawyers to help so many. So who are there now? Advisors who are working under the supervision of one lawyer. The quality of work is, the quality of advices will not always be the best. And that is what the poor people or underprivileged peoples, they do encounter. And I see this on a regular basis, working in immigration, and working in the criminal justice system as well. A lot of these injustices do happen on a daily and a regular basis. So the difference between equity and equality can be drawn clearly from the following grounds. Justness and fairness in the manner of treating individuals are called equity. Equality is what we call a state where everyone is at the same level. Again, that can be questioned. Equity is a process, while equality is the outcome. For example, equity is the necessary condition to be fulfilled to achieve that. While equity represents impartiality, the distribution is made in such a way to even opportunities for all people. Conversely, equality indicates uniformity, where everything is evenly distributed amongst people. So there's differences clearly between equity and equality. However, I believe that the economic justice token will hopefully bring more equity to those who are underprivileged. Why economic justice matters? As I shall reiterate again, it empowers communities. It will reduce poverty and exploitation. I believe we can go into many communities in the Black communities, whether they are in the Caribbean, in Africa. Poverty and crime, it's like a cancer, basically, where many individuals can't escape from, like a plague. So let's say, for example, I used to live in Jamaica, and maybe some females who may live in a rural village who are part of poverty would maybe then reduced to doing immoral acts to feed for her family, or maybe exposed to violence, sexual assaults. Where is her defense? Where is her salvation? Lack of finances. So the more affluent, I'm not saying that people who are affluent and rich don't have issues. I'm not saying that, because I'm sure that they do. However, when there are people who are more financially affluent, there are more opportunities for their voice to be heard, for legal representation, for a defense, for justice. This token will also build trust in the legal system. As Dr. Mashari has mentioned, the token would be available for all peoples, all individuals who can gain justice and trust in the legal system. They would then be able to get decent legal advice. It would also fuel economic innovation. So through the blockchain and using this, the use of an iPhone, people can earn tokens, earn wealth. And it also supports peace and stability, because everyone wants to earn, everyone wants to. In Jamaica, we have a saying called a hungry man is an angry man. So if people can just get decent food, it's going to make them more happier, a decent place to live. Just the simple basic needs and necessities of life. Next slide, how economic justice works. So, and something which Dr. Mashari will probably explain in a bit more depth later on, where we have the affluent contribute financially by buying tokens, and they will subscribe. The underserved will earn tokens via education and engagement. The legal pros provide services, gain tokens, and grow. So what we have here now is a cycle of it's more of a positive cycle, where we are trying to break out the chains of poverty and give opportunities to one and all. And I think that's what everyone just wants to do. Everyone just wants to have the opportunity to live justly, to earn, and just to survive, and not survive, let's say, but to live. So the economic justice token will bring more hope to the hopeless. Should move on to the next slide now. Measuring economic justice. So we have a table here. Key indicators table. Legal access. Who, one and all, should get legal access. And even if we look at the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Okay. And that was written in 1948, obviously after the Second World War. However, how true is this? How many people out in society can get access to true legal access? And this is where the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is. It's a well-written document. However, it's not legally binding in society, and this is where we probably have the issues. And issues within law, equal rights and justice because it's a fallacy. It's well written, and they say, yeah, everyone shouldn't be discriminated against, but clearly it's still happening today, right? Poverty is still here, right? So as Dr. Mashawi said, poverty is something that is created, because if the heads of government and leaders and all the powers that be really wanted to eradicate poverty, surely it should be done by now. And yeah, I don't see why it shouldn't. Enough finances of the earth, there's enough resources to go around, so everyone should be living equally. So this is where the economic justice token would help those, and is the future. Everyone can get access to legal services, and everyone should be able to get access to representation. So if we are applying the Universal Declaration of Human Rights document, Article 7 talks about equality before law. How can you have equality before the law if you are living in poverty? That's a contradiction, right?
Yeah.
It's a big contradiction. We are having modern day slavery. We want to look at the UN's proposals, and for 2030 there is a 17 sustainable goals which we're trying to obtain in 5 years. They are not going to be met. And let me read out the 17R. We have poverty, to wipe out poverty. It's the UN Sustainable Goals Pledge to 2030 to wipe out poverty, to obtain good health and well-being, good quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation. And there's several others as well, which we are far from. To wipe out this place, to wipe out all these things within 5 years. I can't see it happening. So if that so-called pledge, they have failed. They have failed miserably, because there's a society that are left behind, the voiceless, the hopeless. But clearly, the UN do not care. It's nice words, comforting words, but there's lack of action. And this is where this is the big problem which in the legal system, from the powers that be, that the poor are underprivileged, underrepresented. They can't get good representation because lack of finances. So no one is equal in the eyes of the Almighty. And we have the right to freedom of movement under the UN pledge. Again, I disagree again, because I work in immigration, and majority of governments, especially, for example, in the UK, they're discriminative, very discrimination, very racist as well. And these are the governments who talk about a just law. I disagree. There's no right to freedom of movement, because they're making it hard for people to move around many countries. I've wrote articles on this. I've championed, I've made arguments, and sometimes it's a fight. It's like a losing battle, but we continue. We have to fight for those who can't defend and represent themselves. So what the economic justice token would do, it will help level up the playing field for those in poverty, those who can't afford decent representation. It will be available for them. And that is something which Dr. Mashawi will expound on in due course. So the real world and impact. Questions at this time? May I quickly add? Do I have any questions?
Well, maybe there are people with questions, comments. Well, it's a very solemn presentation, very profound, because these are very serious matter. Call about access, which now would give something called human dignity. Human dignity is, as you said, respect of each individual. It comes to the individual level. How does this individual operate in this planet? We just don't have that. And now I get it. You know, thank you so much for your definitions between equity and equality. Equality is a product. Equity is a cause. You see, in life, we have things called cause and effect. Cause and effect. You cannot have an effect without a cause. Equity is the cause that produces the effect called equality. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Equity is the cause that produces equality. Now, in the present finance system, we talk about equality or equal access without understanding the principles of equity. What are the fundamentals of equity itself? That means, does every individual have got the individual dignity to have the value of the work that it produces every day represented? That equity in representation of value. See that? That's now going to create equality, that we are all equal, under the sun, let's say. We are all equal under the sun.
That's it.
Thank you also for bringing up the human rights. And now you can actually understand why even the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, way back 1948, came around. You see, people got together and said, we are going to declare human rights, and they have a very beautiful document. But itself, it does not comprehend, talking about comprehending, because understanding you could say, the mechanism of the technology of producing equity so that the human rights can manifest, or equality in human rights can manifest. See that? And I understand why. It all comes from the fundamental science of the age. So we cannot blame them. Can you believe it? We can't blame them. You know why? Because they were relying upon the economics of scarcity. We are driven today by the economic science, which came back, was expounded to us in 1777 by Adam Smith in his book, The Wealth of Nations. Adam Smith talked about scarcity. See, in Adam Smith economic theory, which now drives he talks about production of an organization. See, he talks about organization or a nation. What Adam Smith did not consider in his theory is the individuals every individual in that organization who is contributing to the productivity of the organization. See? But Adam Smith had no way of actually understanding how to see the individual, because he was relying upon Newtonian mathematics. See, remember Adam Smith said that the economy works with an invisible hand of the market. Invisible hand of the market came from the idea of the gravity. You see the gravitational force that, with this Isaac Newton's calculus in about 1600, in the principles of mathematics, Isaac Newton's principles of mathematics gave us gravity, what's called the laws of motion. And Adam Smith took the laws of motion and applied it in economics, or human productivity. The problem with that is that calculus or gravity itself is a product of other things, but it's not in itself gravity does not produce itself. And so calculus is not able to see the contributions of the individuals or the cause of the issue, but actually see the effect in that. So when now the United Nations human rights coming along, even the entire economic system is built on the system of the effect, instead of the system of the cause. You cannot see the origin, which is called the human action. What causes things to happen is the action of every individual, and that we have missed completely because the mathematics of age. Even I can tell you, by 1929, somebody else came along who explained to us even more how this world works. It's called Albert Einstein. And he said that not everything that counts can be counted. Why did he say that? He said there are things like love, charity, hope, faith. Say, for example, the love of a woman when she's bringing up a baby, the love of a mother, taking care of a baby. Where do you put that? All that work cannot appear anywhere in the balance sheet. So it means that our great, the great mathematicians who gave us the models of understanding the systems of the world today were based on the economics of scarcity, because not everything that counts can be counted. And of course, we have lived in that sense. And because because from there, then we can exclude from the financial balance sheet those things that we do not think they count because we cannot comprehend them with the mathematics of age. See that? That mathematics is known as deterministic mathematics, where it's called determinism, and that's where and then when the legal system, the justice system comes about, it means it's all based on the same mathematics. So the justice is available only to those who have, but it's not available to those who have not, because they don't count. If you cannot pay for your legal services, you're out, okay? And of course, every single transaction becomes extremely expensive for an individual. And then we have billions of people who don't even know who is a lawyer, when you need a lawyer. For example, a woman in an African village has never understood why she would need legal representation. Or maybe say a lady in Jamaica, like you said, out there, she will not go to consult a lawyer. First of all, even that the idea to cross the mind that she's going to call a lawyer is scary to her, because she say, I don't have the money to hire a lawyer. See? Because she is already extra legal. She's outside what can be counted. She does not count. That's what Hanadi de Soto was talking about, extra legal people. These extra legal people, interestingly, form the greatest number of people in this world, because there is only about 300 million people who have got access to quality legal services. The rest of the 7 billion people have no access to legal services. And yet we have so many lawyers trained, but even the lawyers who were trained, they cannot handle that population. But how do we do it? Yes. Now we have a new mathematics, and that's what I would like us all to comprehend. The new mathematics, that's complete overthrow of the Newtonian mathematics, which helped Adam Smith to create the world of nations, or even Einstein himself to talk about the theory of relativity. A new math, which is known as the mathematical theory of communication. This new math is the mathematics on what blockchain is built. Okay, this new math comprehends something called fuzzy logic. Fuzzy logic is something that is not predictable. It's random. It means that the need for legal services anywhere in the world is random. You cannot predict who is going to need a legal representation tomorrow morning, or even or the next day. See that? So, but then how do you account for that person who could randomly require legal representation if the mathematics you're using is the deterministic math? Say, we have so many people, these are the number of people who are going to require legal services, so we can allocate funds that way. But you cannot allocate funds to something that is not predetermined using the traditional finance system. See? That's why the traditional finance cannot comprehend legal representation. So what we are talking about today is something we call the great reversal. The great reversal from the old math into the new math of randomness, where you can actually represent as many people as possible, in fact, all people in the world, to give them access to legal services in a very beautiful formula, which we want to explain to you how it's going to work. Now, the token itself, so the justice token, let's talk about economic justice token, is a token of representation. That means anyone who is holding it has got access to legal representation, and of course would have money. How would that work? Of course, I mean, what Simon would do is mint a whole bunch of tokens, and these tokens are going to be earned by people in the community, regardless whether they have money or they don't have money. So people with money, people with money, they actually can buy those tokens themselves so that they can have the privilege of legal representation. People without money would get tokens by contributing let's go participation or attention, contributing attention. That means participating in learning about how the blockchain works, or even doing good things in the community, and participating in education program, increasing their knowledge, and they earn tokens for learning, so that those tokens they earn for learning, they can represent them whenever they need legal services. And now if you have hundreds of thousands of people, let's say it's millions of people holding the same tokens, the tokens also, because token is very clever. Token is built on the new theory of communication. Token is a token of communication, communicates value. See that? It's like Bitcoin. Bitcoin communicates value. When you hold a token, it means that the value of what you are doing is represented by that token. So people can actually understand what value it is. And so because it's built on that, it's a method of communication, and each one of us have got intrinsic capability to communicate. That's how we survive. And communication is what ultimately defines us. I am because you are. See? I am because nobody is born in this planet by himself. See? Nobody comes to this planet all by himself or by herself. So for you to be here, you are because of another person. See? And that's a fundamental principle in communication. It means that we are here because of others. See? That's called the second commandment, love others as you love yourself. So this traditional finance system has got another fault. It's built on somebody called René Descartes. You know about René Descartes? This guy from maybe some 17th or 18th century, who said, "I think, therefore I am." Wrong. You are not because you think, but you are because of others. For example, people call me Masharia. I don't wake up in the morning and say, "Hello, Mashari." But I know I'm called Masharia because other people call me that. See, it's as simple as that. So it means that yourself or your identity for its existence relies upon the other. And you see, now the token itself is able to capture that value that has not been captured because this traditional system, which is based on mathematics of scarcity, does not capture. And of course, Descartes' Cartesian logic, you could say, "I think, therefore I am." It now creates economics of division, that we are so divided, we are willing to destroy each other so that we cannot come out strong. Nobody comes out. There are no winners in such a situation. We end up just killing each other. Of course, as we're doing that, bacteria, viruses, mosquitoes, even coronavirus, know how to kill us even better than we can do it by ourselves. Okay, so I believe now the economic justice token is now what would help us solve this huge conundrum. It is not because I think that I am. It is because of others that I am. So that means the power is in the network. What the token does then, if you have a whole bunch of tokens, they get distributed in the tokens. They get distributed in the network. Everybody who's holding that token, we are in the same space. And then we all gain value together. And that is that's what creates abundance. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, there is no scarcity of anything in this world. It's like saying there's scarcity of water in the ocean. Water is not scarce in the ocean. Neither is the air that we breathe. But yet, fighting for things that are already so abundant. What we are not able to comprehend is how to gain access to that abundance. And all these wars and enslaving other people, putting immigration problem, a lot of friction, is based on the idea of scarcity. The resources we have in this world are not scarce. They are not scarce at all. What we have is our inability to comprehend abundance. And what the information theory of communication, which has given us tokens, is comprehends abundance completely. So what I would say, I'm sure they'll because these are very deep philosophical things, but we need to break it down. For as a consumer, now what do you have to do? As you have seen, you need to understand the tokens itself, how the token works. And that's why we have this session, so we can train people, and of course, as much as possible, explaining how the blockchain works, because the blockchain is a technology that's built on this new mathematics of communication. And you don't have to understand the mathematics of communication. You just need to understand that it is a philosophy of abundance. That there should be no poverty in the world when you have so many resources. If we are not stealing resources from each other, and even locking up other people in undesirable place, or creating poverty, so that we can have some wealthy, some poor. No. So then it means that the work ahead is educating as many people as possible. And so we have the Actuate Academy, where we shall be, we have the commitment for educating people about how the blockchain works as much as possible, so that we can spread the good news that we don't have scarcity, we have abundance. And then from there, we can actually figure out how to help manifest that abundance. That means people become wealthy. Instead of having scarcity of food, shelter, they have access to food, shelter, and all that. Okay, so I think from the let's say practical standpoint, the economic justice token would be minted on the Ethereum network, about 100 million tokens, and these tokens will be distributed for people agreeing to learn. If you come and learn about how justice works, of course, we are even going to talk to the United Nations itself, because that Universal Declaration of Human Rights is written out here. It's in New York. So the UN is really frustrated about this thing that doesn't seem to work. Since 1948, they declared the Universal Declaration, and then we kind of stuck. But it's because they applied the wrong mathematics. It will never work. It can never work. Even you were talking about, achieving strategic development goals by 2030. Can never achieve strategic development goals by applying that odd math. Can never happen. See? Because it is the wrong foundation. The only way that you can achieve the strategic development goal in the next 5 years, which is actually possible today, is just change the game. Change what's called the governing dynamics. the governing dynamics for what they're talking about strategic development goals, the United Nations, is based on odd math. It is impossible to achieve those development goals based on the Newtonian mathematics. No matter what you do, cannot achieve it. Yeah, it's like making a boat and hoping it's going to fly. No matter what you do, if you have designed a boat to go to the ocean, to the river, you cannot make it fly by saying that by 2030, our boat will be flying. See that? It's a fundamental thing. It's called governing dynamics, because the principle that govern the operations of a boat, an ocean-going boat, are so different from the principle that govern the operations of an airplane that goes in the air. See? So saying that you're going to have universal, you are going to have a strategic development goal achieved by 2030 based on Newtonian math is like saying you're going to have boats flying by 2030. Ha ha, not possible. See that? But right now, and this is what we need to communicate to the you guys at the UN, we have the mathematics for making the boats fly. They're not going to make the boats fly, but designing a new system that can help us achieve that universal human right on the blockchain itself is a solution. So that's what I would like to say about that. And of course, I think the work ahead is, besides now teaching our community, we also need to educate the people at the United Nations so they can actually get a grasp of the mathematics of the age, and so that they can now stop relying upon this mathematics that will never make the boats fly. Okay, yeah, so I would like to stop there because I can talk a lot about this, but I'm sure there are questions, concerns, input.
Okay, I will just continue back on with my part of the presentation. But
Yes.
Thank you for that interjection. Let me just go back and share my screen. But it sort of ties back into what you had clearly elaborated on there, Dr. Macharia, about changing the governance. And quite ironically, we can even go back to the 1776 Declaration of Independence in America, how they said that all men are equal. However, which all men were these? Clearly, it was only for a certain state of individuals, whether you were maybe Anglo-European Americans. Didn't fare well for the Americans, the Indians who were there at that time. And it's the same principles have been adopted by the 1948. Again, equality. Who is the equality for? You know, we all know about the Second World War, the winning parties, and what caused these wars in the beginning. Obviously, they were mainly fighting over the African continent. And where was the equality then? So why? So the governance is only faring so more greed, more power, which we all know anyway. However, so this new revolution, shall I say, what Dr. Mashari has brought forward will definitely change the dynamics, because the monopoly clearly is too much. And again, these are the things what economic justice token will help resolve. It would help resolve the inequalities in the access to justice. Today, access to legal services is deeply unequal. Wealthy individuals and corporations can afford top-tier legal support. This is very true. If you're wealthy, you can hire the best barrister. And if you're, unfortunately, you're from a certain race, maybe perhaps, or not even perhaps, just lack of income, you can't get that. Hence why a lot of individuals are in prison right now, maybe falsely. Like how many and the privileged women are going have poor access to healthcare. Again, the injustices to how many women die in childbirth. You know, a lot of these things can't be detected just because of lack of quality of and equity to finances. So this is another thing which the economic justice token would help eradicate if implemented properly. As a realist, and if we were to take something like this to the UN, they'd probably be like, okay, what's Dr. Mashara talking about here? This sounds a bit too. This would shake up things a bit. Radical has to happen because the old governance is clearly not working. 2030, the pledge to eradicate poverty is clearly not going to happen, and we could be 2050. It will not. So, what can help eradicate poverty? The economic justice token can be the steps could definitely be the steps towards that, at least, because we have to try something different, and that's what I do believe. So the token itself, many marginalized groups, including migrants, the unemployed, youth and the working poor, they are locked out of the economic participation because of, again, unjust legal barriers, lack of representation, and even maybe poor access to information and tools. All these barriers are part of the impoverished society, which then again, we talk about the 2030 pledge. If nothing changes, we are back in the same cycle again. The cycles of poverty and it will keep continuing. Without economic justice, poverty becomes like a prison. And these are things that happen as well, where people are trapped in legal issues, can't afford to resolve their matters. As I've mentioned, I used to live in Jamaica. There are individuals in Jamaica who are in prison for 5 years because they can't get legal representation. They're stuck there, and their crime is probably maybe a small misdemeanor. When I heard that, I couldn't believe. I thought that is crazy. They can't afford their bail. So, you know, someone steals a loaf to feed their family. They go to court, go to prison, and if no one can afford to pay their fines, their fees, they will just stay in prison. That's ridiculous. That's unbelievable. But it happens. So economic justice will solve this by transforming the legal system from a luxury into a public utility, powered by innovation, decentralization, and equity. Back to equity, not equality, equity. Equality sounds nice in the Human Rights Act. It sounds nice when we are applying some disability laws and this and that, but to get true equity, economic justice will help bring forth that. That's one thing I do believe. It will also empower individuals and communities. So when people can defend their right, they feel empowered. You know? And it's great to empower another. Why don't certain communities and governments and powers that be, why don't they want to have people empowered? Why? Obviously, there must be I'm not someone who believes in all these conspiracy theories, but maybe they don't want people to be woke, have equity, and have the means to truly live. Maybe again, it's just a form of modern day slavery. Again, these same principles have been throughout society. Nations were built on slavery. You know, the pyramid system, it's the same today in every working environment, every government institution. there's always a top, there's a bottom. But if there was equity, then who would be workers? Interesting question. However, so maybe those powers that be need poverty. So again, this is something, these are the questions which we need to be asking. Why is there poverty? There shouldn't be. There should not be poverty in 2025. It's ridiculous. And the future is definitely this tokenization. So even individuals have acquired land through ancestral land, but they can't afford legal fees to sort out the wranglings in their ancestral land, which has been bestowed upon them. Again, it's all tied up in the court. These things happen on a regular basis. I'm going through a legal issue right now in Jamaica. It's taken 7 years. Still has not been resolved. So these are the things which continue. However, through the economic justice token, we can protect, individuals can secure their land, secure their property, protect their wages, challenge exploitation. And this is the biggest thing. How can we eradicate exploitation? Men are being exploited. Women are being, even children are being exploited. Exploitation. And we say everyone has the right to work, everyone has the right to live in equality. Maybe these individuals want to start their own business. So the token would help someone with maybe they may have a business idea. So everyone can provide for themselves. Now that would be an interesting future where people are there's no work because everyone is working for themselves, feeding themselves, and that would be a real world impact. So as this slide clearly states, people can resolve disputes without fear, and that's a very key point. Whether it's a legal dispute, a criminal matter, because we mentioned about legal access. A lot of people may fear even going to the police to raise their matter, where some police are corrupt. That's a big problem. Some people don't want to go to the police because they are in poverty. Again, the vicious cycle. The token can eradicate youth, can it help bring forth access to the justice system through education. So the more people who are educated about the blockchain, that's a start. And land and contracts can be handled fairly. So the role of the economic justice token, a digital asset to unlock legal services and enable and purchase bridging financial gaps. That's the issue, the financial gap. It's so wide. And there's people that say they can't even buy the basic necessities of life. The token can bring forth that. And it can be a new form of trust and transaction. So through modern day technology and who can have access to a phone, the token is available. And we mentioned about token holders can earn and redeem or can receive tokens through their doing courses, promoting the blockchain through Actuate. Lawyers can be compensated for their work. The poor can pay for legal services. So it brings forth equity. And I think one and all deserves equity. And that should be the new education going forward. What is equity? And we have established that equity is different to equality. And equity should definitely be the action going forward. So Dr. Mashari had mentioned about the change of governing mathematics. And that was a wonderful statement that you have made, Dr. Mashari. And that is where I would like to end my presentation.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
The change of governance.
Hello?
The change of governance. I like that.
Yeah, governing dynamics.
Yeah.
Governing dynamics. Do you know that we are ruled by systems of governing dynamics, which we are not even aware of? Right now, we rely on Newtonian mathematics for everything, including the finance system. And that is what creates this thing called poverty. Poverty does not even exist in, say, you could say, let's say in spirit. But in the physical world, which is called the world of Caesar, we systematically create poverty because the mathematics of the age comprehends something called scarcity. You know, the first lesson in the School of Economics is scarcity. Is that the first lesson when you go to the School of Economics, start studying, they talk to you about scarcity, supply and demand. When the demand is high, then the price goes up. See, it's about price. We're governed by the price. Price goes up if the demand is high. So you can create scarcity to increase demand. See that? If you supply too much, if you have oversupply of things, the price goes down. And that is presupposing that there is not enough of us to pay for that product. I mean, so the demand goes down because these things are created by what's called deterministic mathematics, okay, which is Newtonian. However, nothing is really scarce. What we have is scarcity of imagination for creating the abundance. But we cannot create abundance using the mathematics of scarcity. So we shall need to move from that and we go to the mathematics of abundance, which is the mathematic theory of communication on what blockchain is built. Okay. So it is in this scarcity world, you do some really crazy things. Like you can jail a person for 7 years. Putting somebody in jail means that you feed that person. Somebody is responsible for feeding that person, you know, nourishing him, giving him even healthcare services. Because if you have someone in prison, that doesn't mean that you're not going to give them food or give them antibiotics if you get an infection. So it still costs a lot to the state, lots of money to the state for holding people, you know, keeping people who don't have access to legal services, holding them, and then becomes very, very expensive. So it just makes sense for us to work together so that everybody is on the right side of law. See, that's where the justice token comes in, that the state does not have to spend so much money, you know, holding people in prison who don't need to be prisoned because they lack legal representation. Same thing with the immigration. All this immigration saga, I mean, it's called deportation. Deporting a person costs almost like what? Several $100,000, maybe almost $1 million to deport one person. Because that person has to be put through due process, has to be first of all thrown in the jail for, you know, you know, and then it costs so much money just to go through the whole process. And you see, and all that work is done because of this, you know, mindset of scarcity. We don't need to be deporting people if we don't think, if you're not afraid of something. That's fear. Then people are afraid of the legal system. As Kemal is saying, that people will not voluntarily go to the police to report a problem. Why? Because they're not sure. First of all, whatever you say, that's Here in the United States, we call them Miranda rights. Whatever you say can be used against you in a court of law. So people are not willing to volunteer anything just in case whatever they volunteered becomes an offense, and then it becomes self-incriminating. And not because they cannot afford to get a lawyer to represent them, even to advise them what to say to the police. So all the things go wrong, and people in the community cannot even participate in helping to police themselves because they don't have money. And now, if you come to a place like Africa, we see a lot of people doing things that would benefit a lot from legal representation. For example, local women in villages form fundraising group, which they call merry-go-rounds. Those groups help women to raise money so that they can feed their children. But they are not formally organized. Let's say they are not legalized because they don't have legal advice. And yet we have lawyers trained in the country. Why is it that the women in the village do not have lawyers who are actually their own children, their own sons and daughters? They have sent them to university, but they cannot afford them to come and advise them on their, merry-go-rounds. They cannot even have representation for anything they need. So it is unheard of from any woman in the village to have a lawyer representing her in any matter. I've never heard of that. So I grew up in African village. We knew lawyers in the city, and they were never to be seen in the village because what are they doing in the village except if they are coming for a burial or a wedding? That's only one time you see the lawyer. So we're talking about now breaking that system away, that the lawyer is with the people. That's what you're talking about, participation of every individual. One of those principles, so access, participation, and dignity, participation of every individual. See? So that even people who are traditionally marginalized out there in the fringes, they come to the center of the entire legal system, the legal representation. That's what justice is all about, is equity in representation. And of course, we have the technology to do that right now. So I'm sure there are people with questions, concerns, comments, philosophical thoughts. Yeah? Any question? Who is with us here? Well, can't see. Susan?
Yes, we have Jonathan Santos.
Okay, Jonathan Santos is with us here.
Hello. Let me see how I can unmute myself.
Yeah, I would have to mute myself.
Oh, okay. So one thing I resonated with today, I feel,
Yeah.
is the topic of modern day slavery. Something that motivates me for economic freedom is modern day slavery, and how sometimes we don't have, let's say, like all the freedom to do what we want at like the exact times that we want. So with tokenization, I feel like, having accessibility to, how do I say this?
The justice.
Yes, like everything I was hearing today was very inspiring in the sense which I feel like I'm supposed to be here in a sense.
Welcome.
Thank you. One thing that drives me, like I was saying, is being able to be free and do what I want at the times I want. Whether it be with like financial or just time. And what resonated today was just you bringing up modern day slavery, because I'm not saying, that if you work in a regular job and you're getting paid, let's say minimum wage or something, I'm not gonna technically say it's slavery, but it feels like slavery just because you have to go to this place every single day, or at least 5 days a week. You don't have the freedom to go places that, let's say, might need you in a certain occasion. For example, myself, I recently went through a family loss, or at least somebody who was close to me lost somebody, and they needed me. I wasn't able to travel because of my obligations here in the United States. So in a sense, that could also be, modern day slavery, just because of like obligations and stuff like that, that possibly prevent you from doing what you really want. And I really do believe that was something great discussed today.
Can I make a comment now? I think this word modern day slavery, let's take out the modern day. Let's call it for what it is. It's slavery. It's like in the UK, they have a thing called microaggressions, where really it's just racism. It is, well, let's call it for what it is. It is slavery. Because in the UK, I said I'm helping a lot of individuals with their immigration status or whatever from different countries. And a lot of these wonderful individuals from different countries, they're coming to the UK, they're working about 70, 80 hours a week on bare minimum wage. And out of their wage, they may earn, say, 2,500. And once they have paid their extortionate rent, because they can't really afford a mortgage, because how mortgage rents are, to get a mortgage in the UK is ridiculous. It's like 200K for a very pathetic looking house. It's ridiculous in the UK right now, how the market is. So say they have to rent. Rent could be average 1,500 a month. That's without even paying your bills. And you have to pay council tax. All these things entrap people into the system. So it's like they've just changed the name of it, but it's still the same, because when you're trapped into the system in working for the governments that be, and a lot of these individuals, they may want to go home. Some people haven't been home for 10, 15, 20 years. A bit like yourself, a bereavement. You couldn't go, to bury your loved one. And you felt like you couldn't go, maybe because your job may be in jeopardy.
Right.
So you're then trapped in that, then the system then controls you. So it is a form of slavery. So it's, we may be walking around every day, but I have this philosophy where you don't have to be in a prison, like behind bars, to be in a prison.
Right.
It's just how my mind works, but people can be imprisoned in poverty, imprisoned in toxic relationships, imprisoned in mortgages, imprisoned in a job that they do not want to do, because they have to pay for the house, which have got a 30-year mortgage on. So there's many ways to be entrapped or imprisoned or enslaved. So that was my point there, to be honest. And again, going back to the people who work in the UK, they may earn 2,500 a month. And after that, once they've done the shopping, the food, they're probably left with about £50. What's £50 doing for you? That may be maybe about 70 US. So again, they can't even enjoy that, because they're always at work. So yeah, it is a form of slavery. It is slavery. And again, with the token, it will bring forth a quality of life. And I believe that's what the token would do. Dr. Macharia, would you like to any input on that one?
Yeah, these are deep issues. It reminds me of the movie The Matrix. Remember The Matrix? Yeah, we are in the Matrix. And that thing of being entrapped is what we're calling the Matrix, being jacked in.
Yeah.
Like you're jacked in the Matrix. You cannot come out. And some people just, want that good life of just eating good night steak. But what we are talking about today is taking the red pill. Remember Morpheus, he came and presented Neo, the red pill and the blue pill, and he told Neo, if you take the red pill, you you jump into the rabbit hole and you see how deep the rabbit hole goes. You take the blue pill, you stay in the matrix, and you continue living that modern day enslavement or entrapment. So the blockchain is a red pill. See, is a token, and I think that's the whole thing, and that's what that movie is about. See, this problem has actually been explained so many times. But for that to happen, remember what happened to Neo? There was this lady called Trinity. Trinity is an idea from the Holy Bible. You know, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, part of the Trinity, yeah.
She came and kissed Neo. Remember, Neo had gone to the oracle to get evaluated. Is he the one? Neo means the one, is either an acronym for the one. But Neo was not believing that he can actually, he has got that power to leave the matrix. He's the one until Trinity kissed him. And then when he went to the oracle, he asked the oracle, he was going to have an evaluation, like a clinical diagnosis, whether he's the one. Then she said, the oracle said, I don't know whether you've got it. But until he got, this thing from Trinity himself, he became transformed that he was actually able to even stop bullets. People shooting at him, and he can actually stop bullet with his own hand. See? Now that is the symbolic representation of what happens to you when you believe. And you have said many times, here, Simon, that you believe. So imagine you're being transformed like Neo, okay? That you're taking the red pill, because what you're talking about is transformation of thinking from this old birth that is based on scarcity, this thing that keeps us in a prison, the prison of scarcity. Yeah, it's like this modern day prison that you cannot even travel to see your loved ones. And that's the whole thing that's extremely depressing, to now this new mathematics of abundance, that we have the freedom, economic freedom, to do what, to be the best you can be. Yeah, to be the best you can be, and without asking for permission. You don't need permission from anybody. That's why the blockchain is permissionless. So I think that's what I would like to add about that. And it's really, we want to take this very serious because the technology is already here. Let us use it. Let us mobilize as many people as possible. The thing is that there is a conspiracy to make sure that people don't know about this good news. Because imagine today, although AI has just shown up maybe a few years ago, it's way ahead. They're teaching AI in the universities, but they are not teaching blockchain in the universities. Why? Because these are people with a mindset of scarcity, that economic scarcity, which they want to hold people there in the matrix. But just like Neo had to go and fight, even stopping those bullets, is that he had to actually take the red pill. He's advised by Morpheus. And then when he took the red pill, initially he didn't even believe until Trinity came to him and told him, listen, Neo, you don't get it. You have it within you. And so what I would like us all to know is that we have it within ourselves to express our value without asking for anybody's permission. That getting tokens and getting onto the blockchain. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jose. Yeah, this is Jonathan. I do keep
No worries.
yeah, Jonathan Santos. Amazing. So anyone else there? Jose has gone out. I think he said he has an appointment at 11.
Yes, he's speaking with his tutor.
Okay. So anyone else who has comments? Because now we're getting close to the hour. We've been here for a long time, but thank you so much, Kimari. That's this very, very inspirational. And of course, this is just the first episode about the economic justice token. well, the economic justice itself. Today we were talking about, you know, the philosophy, the phenomena of the economic justice. What is justice itself? What we have learned is that justice begins with equity. Equality is a product. Equity is the cause. That you don't have equality without equity. And I think that's where the Declaration of Independence way back 1776, where they say all men are born equal, but they didn't talk about equity in that. See? But I cannot blame them. I can tell you they were relying upon the mathematics of the age. The mathematics of that time, they were thinking about equality, but they did not think about the equity of every individual, which was called human action. Okay, human action, where every individual produces something of value, but there was no way of representing that value until now. Today we have it, and that's going to be. So as we are in Actuate, we have Actuate token itself. So people, when they participate in this meeting, because of the presence, they get Actuate tokens. But besides that, these Actuate tokens are also in the market, that you are encouraged to go to the market and buy as many Actuate tokens as possible, because the Actuate token is the foundation, the foundation of Actuate Society for Decentralized Science. And it's going to help us continue doing this work and teaching people, as many people as possible. So the work ahead is what I call massive public education. Massive public education. Say, for example, for the economic justice token itself, we would have to train as many as 1,200 ambassadors. 1,200 ambassadors. So Kimathi, we're going to get together and figure out how to mobilize as many people as possible. 1,200 throughout. So regardless where they are, they can be in Europe, it can be here in the United States, or they are in the Caribbean, but we need to train for, these are the minimum numbers needed. So because, in medicine, we calculate something called a dose. If you want to treat, if you're having a headache, you need at least two tablets of ibuprofen or brufen to get the headache going down. If you take one, the headache is not going to disappear, okay? So that's called a minimum dose. So similarly, to get this token functional, we need to train at least 1,200 ambassadors. It's possible to get all those people. It's just because people are already there. We have billions of people in this planet. But how do we bring them on board so we can educate them, tell them, and then they can now become the ambassadors of the token. They can go there and talk to people about what we are doing. But so that's what the work. How do you get these ambassadors? It'll be the local people, your friends, particularly today in the social media. You've got lots of connections on social media, and then people, your former classmates, your alumni. So your college mates or your schoolmates or your elementary school, even high schools, because all those people are there. And then people who are your professional colleagues, particularly, we need to tell every lawyer in this planet, because something about lawyers is a bit challenging for me. The blockchain itself is a legal document. It's called a smart contract. The smart contract was invented by a lawyer who started wondering, how do we put all these contracts that we write on the computer? So he made a smart contract way back in 1994. But today, if you visit any legal offices, it's full of paper. Lawyers themselves have not gone digital. Everything that lawyers are doing is all written on paper. So we need to educate as many lawyers as possible about the smart contract itself, because the token is a smart contract and it's going to make their work so easy and make it very accessible to as many people in the planet. So the lawyer who gave us smart contract is called Nick Zabel. Now he's a gentleman from Brazil, but he lives in San Francisco. Well, so you see, so let's say we have brought blockchain home by talking about the economic justice token, because it's a smart contract which finds its root all the way from the work of Nick Szabo, who himself is a lawyer. It's in honor of people like Nick who gave us the smart contracts. So I don't want to speak a lot more because I think there's so much stuff, but we're going to do a follow-up session to now unpack now the token itself, the tokenomics, and how it's going to work and how we're going to mobilize the minimum numbers needed of ambassadors, 1,200 people, to make the token really universal. And of course, we can also send the word also to the United Nations so that they can understand why universal Declaration of Human Rights and poverty eradication by 2030 would not work in the old system, but it would only work if they adopted the blockchain. All right.
That sounds wonderful. It will become then the universal token.
Yes, that's what it's about. You see, it's called universal basic access.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments? I don't know. George had told me he would come, but he was also traveling to Japan today, so I'm not sure whether he joined today, or maybe he's on YouTube side. I don't know, because you're still live streaming on YouTube. Well,
next time.
Yeah.
A lot
Wow.
more work to do.
There could be people on YouTube and we don't know yet. Yeah. Okay.
Is there any more questions before we close?
No, I don't have questions myself unless there's questions from anyone.
No questions here.
No question from Jonathan. All right. Susan, any question, comments?
No questions, no comments on the comment section.
Okay.
The chat box, yes.
And Susan, are you able to see YouTube, whether there's questions there? But you can
No.
check that later. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Simon Kimani. This is a great beginning.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I think over the next 6 months, we're going to unpack this very properly so that we can also get the human rights people there at the UN understanding what is actually available for them right now to achieve, to even eradicate that poverty.
Yeah, if you have to.
By 2030.
That's it.
It's actually possible. Yeah.
Yeah, sure is.
Okay. Have a good one. Say hello to everyone up there in the UK.
Oh, will do.
Yes.
And you guys stay well wherever you guys are in the States.
Likewise.
Or in the world.
Oh, thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.